While I'm replacing my steering gearbox, I thought I'd make a quick video on how to replace or remove your Trafficator. So one of the things with this, it's a lot of folks just have questions about how to go about doing it. So to remove the Trafficator, you have to remove a wiring harness, and here's the wiring harness. So what I did, there's a number of different ways guys will talk about doing this. You can either cut the wires at different lengths and then put new bullets on. If it's an original harness, you can also unsolder them, the bullets, and pull the wire out that way. What I elected to do was to take and just remove it with the tube that runs down the center of the steering wheel, since I'm having to replace my steering gearbox anyway. So as you can see, these have numbers on them, and what I used was a tool. You can get these at Home Depot, and they got various numbers on them, and so I put them on there, and then I wrote down the wire colors associated with each number. That way when I go to put it back together, I know which ones go where, and it makes it very simple. Once you get your wires disconnected, the next thing you'll have to do is you'll have to take this nut loose, slide it off, and then underneath there's also a ferrule. You can see the end of the Trafficator tube that runs up through the middle of the steering shaft that goes up to where the Trafficator connects, sticking out of there. So you take and remove the ferrule, you remove the nut, and then once you get inside of the car, there's 3 screws which I'll show. You remove the screws and carefully remove the assembly. It's a good idea to have somebody help you, because this does still go through part of the steering shaft, and if you get a little bit overzealous removing the Trafficator tube, you can damage your wire harness. Inside the car, there are 3 small screws. They're visible through the steering wheel as you turn it. So you remove these 3 little screws, and that will allow you to remove the Trafficator. This is the entire assembly when it's removed. When you reinstall this tube into the steering shaft, you need to make note of this. There's a slot cut in the tube that these dimpled areas go into. If this isn't indexed correctly, your Trafficator indicator or the lever won't be in the correct position when you go and reinstall it in the car. When you install the Trafficator back in the car also, the 3 screws that you remove are right on this small plate here, and that's what holds the Trafficator in the steering wheel. So there's no need to really tighten those little screws horribly tight. They are tapered, so they are special. So pay attention to that, but they don't have to be just super tight. A very, very small amount of lithium grease may help keep that moving smoothly when the Trafficator is operated, or when the steering wheel is turned. Once you have your Trafficator out, now you can set it on the bench and work on it. It's not a very hard thing to do. When you reinstall your Trafficator into the car, this recessed portion of the Trafficator needs to be pointed up when you install it. So it'll be like this. That'll make sure that the lever is properly aligned on the steering wheel. So this needs to be facing up. Also, the tube that slides into this has a groove cut into it. And you can see the groove there that it goes into. That also needs to be pointed up if you leave the tube in and just pull the Trafficator with the wiring harness out. Once you have it out, you can remove the 3 screws that hold the front cover on. So once the horn button assembly is off, you need to be careful that there are 3 little springs that are on the front underneath the horn button. So make sure that those don't fall out, or that you don't lose them when you remove the housing. Another thing is, if you replace the horn button, this copper ring sits inside the horn button like so, and then gets attached. The easiest way to install it is to set the horn button into the housing and then set this on top and put the screws in after you've got everything lined up. That way it all stays together. What I did also on mine is when I remove that, I use some just 3/0 steel wool, kind of clean that up a little bit, and it's good to go back into service. Also on this, since I'm not going to totally take my Trafficator apart, I'll put a link that shows how to take it apart in this video. When you disassemble this contact, one side has a nut and the screw will come out. The other side has a nut that holds it all together. Unless you're having trouble with your horn, there's really no reason to take this apart. So I would just leave it alone and reassemble it when you put your Trafficator back together. So this is the assembly that's once it's back together. Another side note is that these pieces are all Bakelite. It's a very, I guess from what I've been told, kind of a primitive form of plastic. So you need to be really careful handling this. When you put the screws back in, you don't need to really just crank them down. They need to be tight. Try not to put things into a bind and that kind of thing when you're disassembling, taking your horn pin off. So if you are going to take your Trafficator apart, one other note here that I'll include: when you go to take this apart, there's a tab right here. This is spring loaded. You can pry it up and over to one side, and then you can move it. And what it'll do is, as you turn it, inside these holes, you'll see 3 screws appear. I haven't turned this one far enough to where you can see it, but there's 3 screws inside there that allow you to disassemble the rest of the Trafficator. I'm trying to get this to roll around here enough to line them up. Takes a little bit of time to find them. But anyway, that will allow you to, you have to turn that plate until your screws line up so that you can remove the screws and take the assembly apart. Like I say, I will, there they are. So you take the 3 screws out. That allows this whole assembly to come off the back. Like I say, I'll put a link in this video that shows this totally disassembled. It's probably a lot better documentation, I think, than I can show in a video. So I'll link that there. So hopefully this will help you if you decide to take this apart. Good luck. Be careful with it. Take care. It is older stuff, so you just have to kind of be careful not to break things.